I mean, ultimately, it's to bring awareness and make people, realize what's really going on in this country. There are a lot of things that are going on that are unjust, people aren't being held accountable for, and that's something that needs to change. That's something that, this country stands for: freedom, liberty, justice for all. And it's not happening for all right now.
Welcome to the Reindl Report.
Hey, here's a hot take for you. Steph Curry, most overrated basketball player I've ever seen.
A podcast out of San Diego, California that rewrites the definition of mediocrity.
Yeah, and I don't trust anyone that calls a hot dog a sandwich. Are you crazy?
Are you stupid or something?
And I'll tell you another thing. You know what? I think pineapples do belong on pizza.
I'm as stupid as stupid does.
I think watching pitchers try to hit in baseball is one of the worst things in all of sports.
Oh my God, Paul could just, you make me so mad sometimes.
And I don't want to hear any of this 6-0 in the finals. LeBron James will retire as the GOAT.
Shut the up! Now, here's your host, Paul Reindl.
All right, what's up? It's another podcast, episode 56 of the Reindl Report, and man, there has just been... Look, in the last 7 days, there is so much I wish I could talk about in sports. I wish this was a podcast about the federal investigation in college hoops. I wish we were talking about the NBA just shooting off firework after firework this offseason with Media Day and Kyrie Irving and LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony being traded and all, Dwayne Wade to the Cavs. There is so much. The Chargers, they're 0-3. They kicked Boltman out of their stadium on Sunday. Are you kidding me? There is so much that I wish I could get to, but if you have a pulse, you know that there's a lot more serious issues going on, and it is tied into sports. This is not going to be a political podcast because this is the stick to sports argument. Well, here's the thing. When the President of the United States tweets over 20 times about sports in just a matter of a couple of days, the stick to sports argument, it is gone. And so I wanted to sit down with one of my good friends, somebody from a much different background, somebody from a much different path of life, and try to have a conversation here. And he's been on this podcast before. If you listen to Mighty 1090, you've heard him before. His name is John Browner. He's on Twitter at Browner_John_. He really likes underscores, apparently.
Love underscoring.
What's
Love
up, dude?
them.
How's it going, JB?
Yeah, I want to thank you for having me, by the way.
Of course.
What I want to say before we start anything, right? I don't want to hear people say stick to sports. The person who tells you to stick to sports, you should slap them, right? Because here's the thing. Donald Trump didn't stick to real estate, right? People on Fox News don't stick to news reporting. They're scientists, right? They're doctors. Like, stop telling people, why is it that athletes only have to stick to sports? Like, why? Why? Like, what? You don't think they have other thoughts and ideas? Stop telling athletes to stick to sports, because some of our greatest Americans, some of our greatest people in the history of the world have been athletes who didn't stick to sports. So stop telling people to stick to sports, man.
I love it. Look, this is going to be a bit of an uncomfortable situation. This might be uncomfortable to listen to. And I think Greg Popovich said it perfectly at their media day on Monday, whenever that was. Monday. Go look it up if you have not heard Greg Popovich, a white man who has served, I believe he served in the military.
The
Air
Army,
Force. Air Force.
Go to my Instagram. On Instagram at, what is it, no refills in London. It's a funny story. I'll explain that someday.
Well, I wanted to actually ask you. I wrote down, ask John about London, because you were in London last week. How was that?
Yeah, it was great, man. Donald Trump's embarrassing. I had a 22.
What is the reputation of the United States in London?
You
walk around, you walk into a pub, you go up to the bar, you order whatever they drink over there in London. You order your tea and crumpets, and they say, "Where are you from?" And you say, "I'm from San Diego, California. I'm from America." What does that person say?
Oh, what are you doing in London? And then, because no one does it initially, no one does it straight in your face, like right off the top. Okay, they do it. They warm up to you, and then they look at you and go, "What's going on in your country?" By the way, they have terrorist attacks there every 3 months. They're asking me, what's going on in your country, dude? What's done? I hate your president. Like, literally, people said that to me. Young adults, old adults looked me in the face and go, I hate your president. I was at a pub crawl, right? It's 1:30 in the morning. There's a kid in a Donald Trump mask. I took the mask off his face and ripped it in half. And 6 people started clapping.
Oh, my God.
Like, this is real. Like, this is real. If you live in a bubble, I asked for this specific situation, for this specific time in history, for this specific moment in your life. If you can hear my voice, if you are a listener to the Paul Reindahl podcast, I ask you to step out of your bubble and ask a person who you have a fringe relationship with what their life is like. Because that's the problem. I ask that you sit down with the person who you may be, like he said, uncomfortable having this conversation with, and have this conversation. Because walking in another person's shoes is impossible. Hearing about another person's struggles in life is very plausible. You just have to have the guts to do it. You have to care enough to do it. We live in a very, 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 very socially driven society. By social, I mean media-wise. And if you think you're going to solve the world's problems, like I was just saying to Paul before we came on here, if you think you're going to solve a person's take on something by fighting with them on social media, you're wasting your time. Mm-hmm. Like, literally, they never have to meet you. They never have to feel the full force of what you're arguing about.
You don't even have to know what they look like.
At all. Zero.
Because they got some egg for their profile.
Right. A lot of these cowards, by the way, with women pictures saying really nasty men stuff, it's hilarious to me. Like, a lot of I don't go on Facebook anymore.
I deleted it.
I'm 100% honest with you.
I deleted it.
I didn't delete it because I need it for work.
I deleted it off my phone. I haven't looked at it in a long time because we still have work.
By the way, deleting it from your phone gives you a lot of space.
Oh, my God.
A lot of space. Little iPhone trick out there for you guys. I have it to post my podcast because I have a bunch of people who are friends with me on there. So I use it for a business purpose. Every time I go on there to post a podcast, I see people fighting. Mm-hmm. It's fighting. It's like walking through a verbal war zone of people just shouting things at each other who are quote unquote friends, but they've never met.
Right.
They're quote unquote friends of friends who you've never actually had a conversation with this person who you are now trying to have an extremely deep conversation with. like I was saying to you earlier, the only way to truly affect this is to speak to people within your circle. That's the only way. If you know a person who knows a person who voted for Trump, whether they admit it or not, or believes in Tea Party politics or far right politics or far left politics that you don't agree with, have a conversation with them. If you know someone who is against abortion, you're for abortion, have a conversation with them about that. I guarantee you'll learn something. Mm-hmm. We live in a society where you can be right all the time. Right?
Yeah, sure.
You can be right all the time. If you want to, you can go to a place somewhere on your phone where you can find the right answer that makes you right.
Right. If you follow the right accounts, you can flood your following with everybody that you follow with only things that line up with your agendas. And you could think, oh, I'm going to follow Fox News and I'm going to follow Breitbart and I'm going to follow The Blaze. And that's going to be my only source of politics. You're going to have one set of issues. You're going to have one set of ideals that are so far opposite regarding the same issues. They're going to be completely polar opposites from somebody that follows CNN and MSNBC and, Anderson Cooper. The same topic, the same issues, and you won't be able to have the conversation with the other person because the facts between the two are going to be so night and day.
And that is why you playing Colin Kaepernick's initial reason for why he did the protest is very important because people don't talk to each other. The reason for why he's actually protesting has become lost in translation. Too many people think this is about the flag. So then you should, without asking themselves, well, why is he protesting the flag? Why is he protesting the national anthem? Just, you're pissed because he's doing it, or because they're doing it, not asking why they're doing it.
Right. I felt it was very important. That clip was, and he goes on for several minutes after that, but that was the first comments that he made in front of his locker in August of 2016, over a year ago, by the time this podcast is being recorded on September 29th of 2017. So, I did feel it was important to put Colin Kaepernick's comments in there. And so, look, let's just get into it. Let's get into the issues here. This isn't going, in my opinion, and you're listening to the Reindl Report, you're listening to Paul Reindl's podcast, most likely for Paul Reindl's opinion. I could sit here and read you the scores from Major League Baseball last night, but you can already get that on your phone. You can't get my opinions. So in my opinion, this isn't even a political issue. We're not talking about pro-life and pro-choice. We're not talking about tax increases. We are talking about equality amongst all races. That should not be a political issue. So that's the whole keep politics out of sports argument. This shouldn't be about politics. This should be, are you okay with us having racial equality or not?
This came at a time where, and this is something that I never thought could happen, by the way, that an outside entity could disrupt the sports world from a sense that the very basis of sports is the best player plays. It's not about whether you're black. It's not about whether you're white. If you're better than the person across from you, you play. Mm-hmm. Bottom line, okay? And for this to now have been a situation where when you're and I'm gonna be 100% because I don't listen. I don't care. Dan Sileo, okay? And I don't want to get Paul in any trouble. These are my thoughts. These are not Paul's thoughts. No one's heard me say this. Dan Sileo will tell you about his days for the Miami Hurricanes, right? He was a great football player at the University of Miami. I work with him. He's often taught me multiple stories about how he was the only Italian in a room full of black guys, okay? Which, to me, okay. Like, I respect that. That's great. It's good that he's diverse enough to hang out with a group that's not from his background. But when I hear him speak about the protest, it's as if he's never learned anything from all those black men he sat with in those meeting rooms in Miami. What I'm asking people to do, and what I wish he would do if he were ever to hear this, when you sit in a situation like that, when you sit with a group of people who are not like you, learn something from them. Whether you can do something with the knowledge you take from that meeting or whether you can do something with the knowledge from that experience is a different story. But if you don't attempt to learn from a room full of people you sat in for a year, you had blood, sweat, and tears with for a year, and you don't know their path in life, you don't know the struggles that they've gone through to get to where they're at, then what are you do? You're just sucking up air. You're sucking air and making tackles. When you are in an office with someone, you spend more time with them than probably your significant other. Learn something about the people within your reach. Change the lives of the people that are in your reach. You're not going to change someone's life on Facebook. And so when Colin Kaepernick initially did this, it was because no one could hear the voices of those being murdered, beaten, and arrested unjustly by police across the nation. This was not he never started this. He never said white cops, right? He said cops. He didn't say the white justice system. He said the criminal justice system. And then the news turned it into he chose to kneel during the flag, so this is about the flag. When not taking the time to understand why is he kneeling during the flag, people say, here's one of my favorite things, right? And I don't know if you're going to get to this later, but that's not the right platform for that.
Oh, I'm going to get there.
Okay. I'm going to say this and then we can get to it.
Go to it, yeah.
For anyone who feels like that's not the right platform, I will tell you this. It's the perfect platform. The NFL is the most watched television program on a weekly basis in the world. If you want something to go around the world, you do it on a football field on Sunday. So don't tell me this ain't the right time, because it is. It's the highest rated program on television. This would be like taking a knee on American Idol season 2 when you crown the winner. I'm talking about eyeballs. We're talking about eyeballs on this. How many more people are watching?
You know, I literally was thinking about this the other day, kind of like a lighthearted example similar to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Look, there's a time in the year, and I don't remember what time of year it is, but there is a point of the year where when I go to the grocery store, I have to be on the lookout. And I got to go, oh no, can't go through that door. Got to go to the other side because there's those damn Girl Scouts selling cookies. And I know I can't say no to them. And I will buy, they're like $6 a box now, dude.
Thugs.
$6 a box for these little Girl Scout cookies.
It's a mob racket they're running.
I bring that up because I get uncomfortable and I want to avoid these Girl Scouts selling their cookies. However, I wish they would just stay at home and sell their damn Girl Scout cookies.
You ever go out of one door thinking they're not at that door, they're at that door
and
too?
They're still there. And they're still at the other door.
They got me with that
Or you walk in one door, and then when you come back out that same door, they're there.
Yeah.
And so, look, it would be more comfortable for me if the Girl Scouts would just stay at home and text their family members.
Right.
And have their moms put a Facebook message out, hey, Susie's selling, some Girl Scout cookies. Come get some Samoas and some Thin Mints, right? But are there not going to be a lot more people to see their cause by going to a grocery store?
Absolutely.
I'm actually pretty happy with how that example played out. I just kind of thought of it in my head the other day, and I'm like, how's that going to work? But, all right, I want to get into the meat of this, John Browner. And like I said, we come from very different walks of life. We are very different people. Yes. I'm a 27-year-old white male from Seattle. You're a 36-year-old African-American man from the south side of Chicago.
Damn right.
We don't have a lot in common. We also have a ton in common.
Right. It's weird, right?
It's crazy how that happens. How does that happen? So here's what I want to do. And you tell me if you're okay with this. I wrote down, I spent a lot of time thinking about how to do this podcast. If you have a sports podcast, there's no way you could possibly just avoid this conversation and this topic that's going on.
You're a coward if you avoid the topic.
Exactly. If I just tell you about, Aaron Rodgers, that great game and overtime win over the Bengals, I'm high. What am I doing?
Right.
Okay. We have to have this conversation, and I want to have this conversation. So what I want to do, I wrote down a bunch of statements and arguments that are being made in opposition of these protesters.
Oh, this is going to be great.
I'm going to say things that I have either heard personally and tried to argue with, people, family members, other, friends, coworkers.
Those are the people you can help.
They're the people I can try to help.
Those are the people you can help.
Mom, if you're listening, I love you. You're wrong, but I love you.
That dickhead in Kansas that you've been fighting with on Twitter for 2 weeks, you ain't gonna help him.
So I want to read some of these statements and issues that I've seen raised to you,
okay,
and you respond to them the best you can. Okay, you tell me why that is false. I want facts. I want clarity in this conversation. I don't want this to be, we're at 17-some minutes right now. I don't want this to be another 30 minutes of just bashing Trump. You can go on my Twitter at Paul Reindl SD if you want that, okay? You should probably have an idea of how I feel about the guy. He's an asshole. I don't like Donald Trump. I don't want this to be a 30-minute protest against Donald Trump. Right. I want to clear the air and have this conversation about how we got to this point and how we might be able to, where we might be going from here. Right. So the first thing that I wrote, and you kind of touched on it, the NFL players are protesting the national anthem.
That's the furthest thing from the truth.
But I tuned in, and the flag was there, and the players were still in the locker room. They are protesting the national anthem and the flag.
If you wake up on an NFL Sunday, and you're fortunate enough to click on your television, you've paid your bills, and you see the flag roll out, and you see people kneeling, or you see guys in the locker room, or you see people's arms clutched, and you look at that as a sign of disrespect to your country, to the flag, I have something for you. The next time you walk past an aisle in a grocery store and you see a beer can wrapped in the American flag, That's disrespectful to the American flag. The next time you go on your computer and you go to one of these freaky websites and you see Kate Upton with a Star-Spangled Banner popsicle in her mouth, that's disrespectful to the flag. If you are really that upset about it, then you have to go by how the code of the conduct of the flag actually works, by the way. It is disrespectful to the flag to lay it flat.
I was going to say the very flag that you're upset about.
So when you wake up
on television
and you see that flag on the television, it's being disrespected because you think it's being disrespected. The actual process is disrespectful to lay the flag flat. The fact that you didn't stand off your fucking couch for the national anthem is disrespectful to the flag. You're doing the same thing they're doing, but they have a reason for doing it. You're not doing it because you're just fucking lazy. Next question.
Next question. I totally when I saw these code of conducts, for the flag, the
Wasn't
U.S., I was like,
Wasn't
damn.
it great? It's amazing what you can find out.
I disrespect the flag every day. If you wear it as a bandana, or if people put a bandana in their back pocket or on their head, that's disrespectful.
It's never
to have it as part of clothing like that. It is disrespectful to the flag.
The flag's never
by rule of the U.S. Code of Conduct for the American flag.
It's never supposed to be on the ground. It's never supposed to be sat on. It's never supposed to be used for something other than to salute.
Right. Now, I think that might be even a little nitpicky. Like, while it's legitimate, it's one of those things where it's like, all right, well, if you really want to get technical, there's all these protests, and it's legitimate. It's totally legitimate. The way I thought of it, and I've heard this used by several people out there, and I just think it's the perfect example. If you are claiming that these NFL players are protesting the flag and the anthem, was Rosa Parks protesting public transportation? Was Rosa Parks protesting buses, or was she protesting something that was so much more bigger than that, and the bus or the flag or the anthem was just the medium, the way it was being protested?
Was Martin Luther King boycotting cars and horses and bikes because he chose to walk, because they chose to march? Was he boycotting roller skates? No, man. No. Like, come on. I wish we could be smarter than this, but I've said this for a long time, since I was probably about 25. This country is full of a lot of stupid people who go against their own self-interest and will never, ever want to see the light of day on certain things that will never come to their street, certain things that will never come into their life. So if it doesn't affect them, why should they care about it?
All right, moving on. And I have an idea where you might go with this one, because we were talking about it earlier. By taking a knee, you are disrespecting the military.
Look, another thing that
you laughed beforehand.
Another thing that people have completely blown out of proportion, by the way, the United States military, the United States Armed Forces, fight to defend the Constitution. They don't fight to defend the flag. They sign up to defend the United States Constitution. Nowhere in that does it say anything about the flag, my man. So that's another misnomer that people want to stand up and say, you're disrespecting our military. A person in the military will tell you, I don't fight for the flag. I'm not fighting for the anthem. I fight to defend the Constitution. Dumb people will come up with dumb reasons to save their dumb ideas. This is on the list of dumb things that they're trying to save by throwing out public servants like United States soldiers or police officers or firefighters and saying you're disrespecting them by disrespecting the flag. And that's not the case. That's absolutely not the case. I've never seen any of these guys come out and say, I'm doing this because I say the military. They've never said that. They've never said that. Find me one guy. I challenge you to find me one guy who said, I'm taking a knee because I want to say the United States military, all its armed services, the people crippled because of the war, the people, no legs, no arms, all them. They shouldn't have been fighting anyway. I never heard anybody say that. Never.
I think people forget or maybe don't know the U.S. military actually pays the National Football League for, and this goes back to your what better platform to protest.
Thank you.
The United States Army and the United States military, they pay as advertising dollars to have players on a certain week all wear a patch for the U.S. Army, or they'll have a marching band spell out the words Army or something like that across the field. The U.S. Army pays for that because they know millions and millions of people are going to be watching.
They pay.
That is not the NFL. Nobody's doing anybody favors. It is a business deal. And I want to just go furthermore, and I want to bring up a name that maybe you've heard of, maybe you don't know him, and maybe you just forgot about him, but it's incredibly relevant. Nate Boyer. Nate Boyer was a longtime military veteran. He tried to play in the NFL. He was on a practice squad, I think, with the Seahawks, and I think he tried to cut it with San Francisco, and it just didn't happen for him, and he retired. He never played in the NFL, but he was on a roster at one point. Nate Boyer reached out to Colin Kaepernick last year and wrote him a letter, and they got in contact, and they started talking. Nate Boyer, military veteran. They got together, and he goes, "Hey, man, I just want you to know, like, I kind of see where you're coming from. Like, they had a conversation similar to like what we're trying to have right here. They had a conversation,
with
and Nate Boyer,
within that circle, they're trying to save someone within their circle and have a conversation with a person whose opinion they can actually change.
Exactly. Nate Boyer said, "Hey, I want you to understand where we're coming from, the military." He's speaking on behalf of veterans and military members. He said, "Where we're coming from, whether we agree or disagree, like seeing you sitting on your ass on the bench, that's disrespectful to the flag. That is disrespectful to us. But if you took a knee, if you got off the bench and took a knee in protest, we can get behind that. We can support that. That was military code for us when there was a fallen brother or something like of that nature. They would take a knee." So Colin Kaepernick, out of respect for the military, not disrespect, as has been blown up in the past 7 days, out of respect for the military and trying to understand their side of things, he changed his protest and went from sitting on his butt on the bench to taking a knee on the sidelines.
Because he never wanted it to be seen as if he was disrespecting the military. And that's the number 2 reason people come flying out of the woodwork with an excuse of he's disrespecting our military. But they don't even know the reason behind why he's taking the knee. Not the actual police and justice part of it, but the reason why he went from sitting to kneeling. People don't even know that.
Right.
They don't even know that. It's like when Donald Trump was on the tarmac and went, "I never said anything about race." Well, you moron, that's because you don't understand what the entire thing is about.
Right.
So, yeah, no, you didn't.
And I've had arguments this week with people. This was about the flag and the anthem. Who brought race in this? I'm like, no. The entire protest at its core was brought up because of race. How about this one, John Browner? I'm fine with what they're protesting, but do it on your own time.
So,
I can't show up at my work and take a knee. I can't show up at my work and protest. Why should you?
Actually, every person can silently protest. Here's the beauty in a silent protest. If you don't say anything, no one will know until they ask you. Like no one knew he sat on the bench until someone came and asked, "Hey, why do you sit on the bench for the national anthem?" Lo and behold, here we are today. A guy by the name of Ryan Moats. I don't know if a lot of you guys saw the CNN town hall. By the way, CNN does a lot of town halls. A lot of them are just free publicity for politicians, but this one was actually semi-useful. During this, the CNN town hall with Anderson Cooper about patriotism, protests, and some other P that they had, a woman, the wife of former NFL cornerback Ryan Moats, I think he was a running back, either or, anyway, he was number 29. He could be either. She said that he was arrested and assaulted by the police. Him and his wife went to the police department to try to make a change on how police practice is done in Texas, where this happened. When they got traded to Philadelphia, they did the exact same thing. They tried to become a part of the solution of doing things behind the scenes, not making public statements. because they thought that, A, they didn't want to hurt his career, and B, they wanted to actually make a change without it making it seem like they're thirsty for attention. What she said was, every time they tried to build a bridge to meet the police department of both cities halfway, the door was constantly slammed in their face. Constantly. So when people say, oh, you should do this on your own time. For what? No one will know. No one will talk about it. You know who's not going to help you do that? The police department's not going to talk to you if they don't have to. They've got cities to police. They've got crime to manage. In my opinion, no, they shouldn't have been meeting with Ryan Boats. There's real crime in Philadelphia. There's real crime in Houston, Texas. They don't have time to be sitting down with some guy who's some officer roughed up. That's just my opinion. Cops have real cop shit to do. So when you do it in a sense where now you get everybody's attention, now police don't have a choice but to address you. And they're not going to send you some liaison from the police force. You're going to get the chief of police. Okay, you're going to get their version of Shelley Zimmerman to meet with you because you've got the nation's attention. You're on CNN. You're on MSNBC. You're on Fox. You're in the Huffington Post. You're now a big deal, and you know what police hate? Fucking stuff up publicly. Because
happens a lot, but they don't like it.
Murdering an unarmed person is fucking something up publicly. And you know what you don't want to do after that is fumble the response to that. And so when you put attention and a spotlight on police officers and you're a person of prominence, they have to then address you publicly with an actual figure from the police. And so therefore, doing it on your own time will result in very little traction. Very little traction.
But I tune in to the NFL to see football.
Yeah.
I don't watch for your political beliefs.
I'm sorry if you having your first 2 minutes of the football game, by the way, they even stopped televising the anthem.
I rarely ever saw the anthem televised until it became a big issue in the last year. And obviously with the exception of like the Super Bowl and the college football playoffs and stuff like that, just your regular like week 4 NFL game.
They don't even play the anthem.
That's when they go to commercial break.
For that person to say, oh, I don't tune in for that. At what point during the
trust me, I work in broadcasting. I've worked a lot of professional and minor league radio and radio broadcasts, and it's okay. We got to get out now because the anthem's about to start in 10 seconds, and the break is the commercials are perfectly timed out so that we will get back right after the national anthem.
So if you think that that's really the issue for you, then you want to be mad about this for your own reason. And that's the truth. They don't even air it half the time. Now they come back from commercial from said national anthem with a cut of guys who did knee, people who did lock arms, and they never show you the anthem. They never show it to you. So are you mad because you know what happened? Or what are you mad about? They took it off your television so you didn't have to see it. During the game, nobody's protesting.
Right.
They're trying to score touchdowns.
Colin Kaepernick was not scoring a touchdown and then holding up a Black Lives Matter sign.
He wasn't showing pig socks when he scored.
Right.
Like he was out there trying to win the game. If you're mad because I just want to talk about football, then just talk about football. You don't have to talk about the protest. You don't. Watch the game. You don't have to see the knees. Watch the game. Watch the game once you know it started.
I'm going to blow through this last one. I'm going to take this last one here. It says Colin Kaepernick isn't in the NFL for the same reason Tim Tebow isn't in the NFL. They had all his baggage. Tim Tebow, who would take a knee in prayer, you know it as Tebowing. He would do that in celebration. He would actually do that during the game, not before the game.
By the way.
By the way. But he was, shoving his religion down your throat, and you didn't go there to that. And so Colin Kaepernick is trying to shove his politics in your throat, even though all he's really trying to do is say, please stop killing black people.
Unarmed.
At exponential rates, or disproportional rates, I should say. Here's the deal. When Colin Kaepernick's time with the 49ers ended up, how many times has he worked out? How many contracts has he signed with other teams?
Zilch.
That would be 0. Tim Tebow had 3 chances after his time in Denver.
And couldn't throw a 5-yard out.
He couldn't work it with the Jets. He couldn't do it with the
Broncos.
He did, whatever. He won a playoff game. Patriots, he got cut.
Stop saying he won a playoff game. He threw a pass.
He was on the field.
He threw a pass that went 6 yards, and the person who caught it ran 86 yards. That's how that worked out. He didn't throw a bomb. He threw a 6-yard pass where the guy ran for 80-something yards.
And then he took a knee and he prayed.
Praise the Lord.
I like Tim Tebow, but that is...
I like
Tim
Tebow, too.
You cannot make that argument. You just have to stop.
I like Tim Tebow, too. But
John,
tell me he won a playoff game.
I want to wrap it up with a couple of different... We'll get away from the whole opposition statements here.
Okay.
I kind of know the answer to this question already, but I want to ask it. If quietly, peacefully protesting by taking a knee during the national anthem on a NFL Sunday where there's millions and millions of eyeballs watching you, and you're extremely transparent about why you are protesting, and in Colin Kaepernick's case in particular, you make a $900,000 donation and fine details where that money is going, and you're simply trying to get the conversation started for your cause. If that's not the right way to protest, what is the right way to protest? Is there a right way to protest? Because, and I've had conversations with other people and people of color, like when we see the looting and the rioting, and they go, look, you know what? You just don't understand. And it's true. Like, as a white man, I can't even begin to ever understand what it's like to be a black man in America. But I can at least listen to the conversations that were, similar to what we're having here. And they say things like, at some point, enough is enough, and you got to make some noise to be heard. So that's wrong. Marching in the street, people are going to say, get out of the way, I'm going to be late for work. Traffic. If you're at home, nobody's going to hear it. What is the right way to protest in America? I mean, apparently, in some circles, you can get tiki torches and march down the street, and the president will say there were very fine people there. But if you take a knee peacefully during an NFL game, you're a son of a bitch, and you should be fired, which is against the Constitution.
If you liken this to parenting, right? Protesting, if you're liking protesting to parenting. When you have a child, you've told them, don't do something. They do it anyway. You tell them, don't do it again. They do it again. The third time, you have to spank them, forfeit, however many it takes for you to spank them. So at this point, you spank them because you have to say, look, I've asked you to stop doing this. You keep doing this. And so now my only reaction is to try to physically punish you to hopefully that you understand I don't want you doing this. How many neighborhoods need to be burned down via spanking before we realize, or before the public realizes, people are tired of social injustice? How many people, how many officers, and before I say this, I don't advocate assaulting any police officers because none of these protests, by the way, are anti-police. How many officers have to be assaulted? Like that one guy in Houston who got his rifle and murdered 2 police officers. Mm-hmm. How many police officers have to die for people to understand and accept that there is a problem with policing in this country, not against just black people, but police overreach as a whole? How many times do you have to say, I've been beaten or I've been unjustly assaulted before people start listening to you? What do you have to do before someone shoots up the school in Columbine? What signs do you have to see before someone shoots up the school in where they shot those kids at?
Sandy Hook.
In Sandy Hook. What do you need to see before it gets to that?
And to your point, of all of the murder, when you say murder, you're implying a specific, intention. And maybe not for all of them that was the case. So I will say the deaths of African Americans involving police officers.
The two unarguable cases is Tamir Rice. Mm-hmm. Okay, the cop shot him before he even got out the door. And I think it wasn't Terrence Crutcher.
I was going to bring up Michael Brown. The I Can't Breathe.
That was Terrence Crutcher.
Was that Terrence Crutcher?
Yes.
Who was Mike? Mike Brown was. You're right.
The one that I specifically asked people to pay close attention to is the guy who was shot in the back in Charleston. Yeah. His name was Terrence something as well. I always forget his last name because I get him confused with Terrence Crutcher because they are similar in size and in facial appearance. Shot in the back multiple times. Police officer lied on the police report, followed that up by planting a gun on him. And if there wasn't a video that was recorded in secret, who knows what would have happened to this guy?
Right.
So when we talk about is there a right way to protest, initially a protest is supposed to be disruptive. People have been basically talked into protesting. Whether, are you okay with this? Are you okay with this? Are you okay with this? Okay, we're on a consensus. We're all okay with protesting in this way. Okay, now it's okay to protest. That. Okay? That. You protest to raise awareness, however the means are. Okay, if you want to sit, I didn't agree with him taking a knee, but I understood why he did it. A protest is supposed to make people upset. A protest is supposed to block traffic on the freeway. A protest is supposed to alter your life in a way that you go, what the is going on here? Why are they doing this? And then you go, well, whoa, I didn't know anything about that. I'm glad they protested that. In Selma, Alabama, they went, why are these black people always marching? And they saw them cops kicking that ass, and they went, whoa, that's not right. Why are they out there fighting? Oh, civil rights? Well, give them civil rights. Why are you beating them up like this? They took that ass for civil rights, give them civil rights. Mm-hmm. So that's what the protest is about, is to get the attention of the people who don't know. So don't kneel. Sit. Get people pissed. And so when they come to you and go, why are you disrespecting the anthem? Why are you disrespecting the police? Why are you disrespecting soldiers? You go, actually, I'm not disrespecting soldiers. I'm not disrespecting the flag. I want you to know that this is happening. And I wanted to call attention to it by doing this. I respect this country. I pay taxes in this country. I'm entitled to let my voice be heard when I feel like it's not being heard. That's what this is about.
I love it. My final thing for you, John Browner, where do you see this going? Trump has doubled and tripled down on his NFL thoughts. It doesn't look like he's going to let up there. Are these players, are we going to see more protests? Are we going to see less protests? I know, like, for one example, the Pittsburgh Steelers said, hey, we stayed in the locker room in the tunnel for last week. Mm-hmm. We're going to be out there this week. Are we going to see more? Are we going to see less? Is this conversation going to keep rolling? Are we going to be moving in a positive direction, in a negative direction? Where are we going, and how do we get to where we need to be?
The only way we can get to where we need to be is if the police if the police participate, that's the P word, within the communities that they work in and talk to the people where they live. That's how you fix this. Because oftentimes, and this is in defense of police officers, by the way, because, again, this is not anti-police. If you put a person in a neighborhood where they've only heard bad things about people who they only think are bad, they're going to go into that neighborhood to patrol it in a way that I just want to make it home. This isn't about money. This isn't about classism. This isn't about race. I don't want to be murdered doing my job. And so they go into these situations completely spooked about the people who they're supposed to protect. And so now the people you're supposed to be protecting, you are now protecting yourself against them because you don't live in that neighborhood. You didn't grow up with these people. You don't know anything about them. You only know them in their worst situations because they call you or you are called to said place to help a violent, dangerous situation. You go running in, adrenaline high, sirens blaring, not knowing that this person may be, excuse my lack of explanation, retarded. Or this person may have just simply had a bad day or may have had one too many bad days. And today, yeah, I'm pissed off. I'm not going to put the knife down. I'm not going to stab nobody. I just need to get this stress off my chest. You don't know that that man's been evicted, or you don't know that that man's been fired, or whatever the case may be, because you're not in those neighborhoods. You don't know those people. This woman's son just got killed, so she's walking in the middle of the street because she's just stressed out. She's having a breakdown. You don't know that. You just rolled up. You patrol the neighborhood. You don't live there. You just rolled up. That's the only way we're going to begin to bridge this gap between the knowing and the unknowing, is to communicate these police departments with these communities. Have police officers live in the communities that they patrol. Not all, because obviously some of these communities are extremely impoverished, and you make a decent living being a police officer. You won't live in a shithole, but you should be forced to live within the community that you are patrolling. That will give you a sense of understanding of what you are patrolling when you're patrolling it. And so oftentimes when you get to a situation where normally you don't know what's going to happen, so your hand's on your gun instead of your taser, and instead of pulling out your taser, you pull out your gun because you spooked. And so the NFL can play a huge part in this, because in places like Baltimore, where the Ravens fan base is 60% black, you send that fucking fraud Ray Lewis into the neighborhood previously to what has transpired now. He can talk to the police. He can talk to the kids. He can be the center. He can be the bridge that gets people together to go, well, I don't like when you guys do this. Well, we don't need you guys doing this. And then you can get to a point where you can discuss that. Larry Fitzgerald can do that in Phoenix. Okay? DeMarcus Ware can do that in Denver. Richard Sherman can do that in Seattle. I don't really know who can do that in Chicago, because Mitch Trubisky is horrible at quarterback. I'm sorry, Mike Glennon is horrible at quarterback.
Michael Jordan has to come back for that one.
Right, but exactly, yes. Scottie Pippen. You get the point. There has to be a person, and this is where football can come into play. There has to be a person to bridge the gap between the police officers who know it's going to be a difficult conversation having it with these citizens, and these citizens who don't trust police officers, but they trust these athletes because they admire them. And so that's where the center bridge is. Literally, that's where the center bridge is. To get this situation to a head and make progress going in the right direction. Will you solve every fucking police citizen murder? Absolutely not. But we can cut down. If you can cut down 5% this year, you cut down 6% next year, those are 6% of people that are alive that were not going to be alive the previous year. And who knows what that person who survived or that person who's now alive can turn their life into. So that's where I think we should go from here. I actually think that's a really good solution.
No, I think you're wrong. I just want these athletes to run and throw and catch and nothing else and not have an opinion.
Don't have Phillip Rivers to be the middleman. He'll throw it to the wrong team.
Yeah, he can't throw it to anybody.
Jesus Christ.
Look, I'm not saying we have all the answers. By no means do we have all the answers. By we, I mean me and my boy John Brown are here. Yeah. But we had a conversation. It gets it might be a little bit uncomfortable to hear that. And I, we're coming up on like 45 minutes here. So I could keep going on about white privilege and what it's like to, and you could talk about what it's like to grow up in America as a black man and
a poor black man.
And,
the worst.
And maybe we'll have part 2 of this podcast at another time. But all I would ask in my final comments here is to just educate yourself. Be willing to meet somebody in the middle, have an open mind, accept, that there are differences. Go listen to Greg Popovich's comments. Go Google Nate Boyer and see how he reached out to Colin Kaepernick. Try to understand why, even if you're not affected by what's being talked about, the issues that have been rose.
You're trying.
I'm trying.
It's one of them.
It's one of them.
It's one of them. Fuck it.
D all the above.
Right.
The issues that have been presented, even if they don't affect you right away, they might affect somebody that you know, somebody that you work with, somebody that you're close to. Just, that's all I ask.
That's the person you should be talking to.
Try to have that conversation, okay? You may not agree on everything. You may not agree on anything. But there are ways to have the conversation. Yelling at each other on social media is not the way to do it.
Never.
Calling people sons of bitches is not the way to do it.
Another reason why people, and this is ultimate dog whistle, so some of y'all might not get this, some of y'all might get this. We talked about this earlier. I made this point with you earlier. You have to take into consideration, right, that people are mad that the owners, okay, can't get their players on the quote-unquote field to behave properly. Okay? Let me repeat that. The owners can't get their workers to behave in the field of play. Now, some of y'all may have caught that. Some of y'all may have not. And if you may have not caught that, you should tweet at Paul and ask him what the hell does that mean.
Don't come at me. Miss me with that.
And he can break it down
it's
for
at you. Browner_John.
Lots of underscores. What I'm trying to...
It sounds insane when you put it in those terms.
It sounds completely
it's like,
ridiculous.
What is happening right now?
Because, yes, they are rich, okay? They're not starving for money. But it's in the system where an owner can't get his property to do what he wants it to do is why people have a problem when Donald Trump says, fire those son of a bitches. Because at a time in our history when the owner couldn't get his property to behave, he simply disposed of it. Now, that might be too heavy for some of y'all, and some of y'all might go, that's not the same. I would challenge you to look at that again and ask yourself, is it not the same? The times may have changed, but the rules are still the same.
And I think that's a little bit, maybe not in those words, but what Greg Popovich did kind of allude to. He said,
shout out to Popovich.
It's supposed to be uncomfortable because something's being, as white people, like something's being taken away from us.
Right.
We've had this upper hand for years and years and years and years.
Hundreds of them.
Since the beginning of this country, we've had the upper hand.
By the way,
we're and things are leveling out a little bit.
Speaking of protests, and I'll shut up after this. I know we got to go. Did you know that the Boston Tea Party started because 6 Americans...
Because Trump tweeted something?
No, because 6 Americans were murdered by British soldiers.
I did not know that.
Education is priceless. That's it. I'm done. I can't go out on a better note than that.
You can't. That's John Browner. He's on Twitter at Browner_____. John _____.
Follow me on Instagram. It's better that way.
Follow him on
free
Instagram.
refills in London.
What's your podcast? Who is John Browner?
Yeah, who is John Browner?
On the Mighty 1090?
Yeah. Or you could just Google who is John Browner.
Who is John Browner? That's how you find his podcast and get his thoughts on sports and politics and life.
Don't follow me on Facebook, though.
Don't follow him on Facebook. It won't
I ain't
help.
there.
That's all I've got. Like I said, maybe next week we'll get to sports, and maybe this weekend World War III will have started. And you
never know.
Who knows what's happening anymore? This will be my final thought. Saturday morning, you were in London, I think, still.
Yeah.
I was texting back and forth with one of my best friends. He might be listening right now, and I go, at least 3 or 4 different times. Damn, man. The best basketball player on the planet just called the president of the United States a bum.
You bum.
What is going? We are living a reality television show.
You bum.
It's just beyond me. So maybe we'll get back into sports. Maybe we won't. You can follow me at Paul Reindl SD. You can go to theReindlReport.com. You can get this podcast. You can get any other podcast that I've done. And you can go to iTunes and subscribe there. You can get it on your phone. Hit the little icon. Hit subscribe. Do all that crap. It'll get sent right to your phone. Right, download it automatically. And you go from there. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you took something away from this podcast. It was not my intention to just turn you off right away. And just you're not going to even listen. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation with John Browner and myself. I'll be back next week with another podcast. So until then.